Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time since I last made a video, but work has just been so hectic, and with Master League coming back, I took a little bit of time to play this rotation and found a really spicy team because all three of the Pokemons that I use are not that extensively used in the Master League meta at the moment. I have a Ray at the front and a Rhyperior Metagross at the back to support the Ray. A lot of the times you will find that the Metagross at the moment just core breaks so many different teams, sometimes double weak to Metagross, sometimes triple weak to Metagross. And I don't see a lot of Metagross on my battles as well. And actually, if I see a Metagross, it will be one of the biggest problems for my team because I just don't have a good answer for it. But with the first match, you saw my opponent just quit, and a second match against the Rhyperior, normally it's a pretty good matchup for the Ray as long as you don't get hit by a Rock Wrecker. And my opponent actually didn't farm the Rock Wrecker early either, so I can take this matchup pretty easily. And I have a shield advantage as well as energy advantage. Taking the lead is a dream scenario, and I usually intend to swap out right away because I am already double debuffed. And out comes the Solgaleo. Solgaleo currently actually is a little bit more common than I would expect. I just don't know how people get the XL candies for this thing because I just don't have any. But if you do, good for you. Maybe you walk a lot, or you just put all of the XL candy, rare candy into it. Either way, when I see my opponent didn't switch out, I know that my Rhyperior is having such a good time. And my opponent at that point conceded the match, so I never saw what was at the back. And then the match onto a Dialga lead. This is always a half 50% kind of win rate for me in terms of a Dialga lead. When I save swap, sometimes it can be a Kyogre at the back, sometimes it can be a Giratina at the back or Mewtwo. It doesn't really matter because I know that a lot of the times when it's Dialga, you have to have some luck to beat it. And my opponent throw Shadow Boya is already first time single debuffed. And I'm going to throw this Breaking Swipe as soon as I get it. If my opponent let it through, then I can take switch. And my opponent didn't shield. So I'm just going to shoot up the next move. No matter what it is, I know that I can take switch. So I'm just going to do that. And I expected my opponent would bring out the third Pokemon so I can see the whole team. Because Dialga from this range is going to take a lot of damage if it comes back out. Turns out to be a Mewtwo. And Mewtwo is such a wild card sometimes because a lot of opponents' Mewtwo's these days is running Ice Beam or Flamethrower instead of Focus Blast or Shadow Ball. And so I always worry that they will run Shadow Ball. And I know that in this current scenario, I can't really take a Shadow Ball onto my Metagross. And so I'm just going to come out here hoping that I'm going to catch whatever move it is on the 7th cycle cut and try to catch it. And you see it didn't work out. So here, no matter what it is, I have to let it go because I know that there's a Dialga still, and there's no reason for me to shield anything if it is a Side Strike or anything, but it's an Ice Beam, and so I got one shot, and from that moment on, the match just got turned upside down. I threw this Earthquake and my opponent shielded, then I'm just going to quit, and my opponent obviously shielded that one, so I conceded the match. Again, if I didn't actually catch that, or attempted to catch that move, I will actually be core breaking the whole team, except the Giratina. The Metagross will be able to take care of the Mewtwo as well as the Dialga. But obviously I misplayed that one, so GG. This match, again, we have Ho-Oh in the lead. Normally is a good lead, unless your opponent play really well. My opponent switched out right away to a Cernians, and this is a little bit awkward because I know that my opponent doubled up here, so I thought he's going to CMP time me. I'm going to throw it right away. But my opponent didn't. So he actually got a Geomancy through for free. And now I know here's another close combat and doubled up. And I have to throw it right away as well if I want to keep switch advantage. So I'm going to throw it right away. And Metagross will always win over a Cernians. And this is a very awkward health range for the Metagross. Instead of just dying with throwing a Meteor Mash onto the Ho-Oh, I switched out with the Meteor Mash store, hoping that it will go places later on if I need to use it. And my opponent didn't switch out, so I know that my Rhyperior is again having a very good matchup at the back if I can manage to take out the Ho-Oh. So my opponent didn't switch out, so I throw a bait, knowing that probably is going to shoot. And here is the second move coming through. I'm still not going to shield, of course. With the Rayquaza at the back, I know that I can handle this Ho-Oh pretty easily and turn out to be a Dialga at the back. So at this range, I know that the match is pretty much over. What I need to watch out for is that I have no energy when the Ho-Oh come back out. So here, I'm just going to throw the debuff as soon as possible and undercharge it massively, so that I know that my opponent would have to throw a Iron Head in order to take my shield, and I'm okay with that. And with the debuff, I'm nowhere near Incinerate range for my opponent to farm down, so I can just farm down this Dialga. My opponent can't double up move on Ho-Oh, so I'm gonna throw one Dragon Tail, one Breaking Swipe to bring it down to a medium match range, and my opponent will have to throw a move to take me out, and my medium match will be able enough to take it. So GG to my opponent there, he conceded the match. Solgaleo lead, not very common, but I have to say I've seen more than expected. And most opponents will try to CMP you on the Breaking Swipe, which I don't understand because you're going to lose that one. So my opponent here didn't, and here I'm just going to let it go. With the Rhyperior at the back as well, I know that no matter what it is, I can just soft lose the lead and then use my Rhyperior to farm down. So I'm pretty happy with that. And I usually don't throw the second Breaking Swipe right away. I like to farm up to a Dragon Ascent and threaten a shield, or just take the lead. And here's exactly what I do. Most opponents don't shield that, but for this time, my opponent decided to shield this because my opponent wants lead, and that's fine. So I'm going to bring out my Rhyperior. And here, I was thinking it's going to be an Iron Head, and I just want to make sure that I don't take a lot of damage, so I shield it. Got baited by a Psychic Fangs, but that's fine. My opponent got to throw another Psychic Fangs. I have to let it go. And I was hoping that with Solgaleo out of the picture, Metagross will have a lot of play at the back, and we'll see what it is. It turned out to be a Rayquaza. So I'm going to throw this Rock Wrecker right away before my opponent could get to the Breaking Swipe. And now is Metagross time to shine. So we're going to bring this out and hoping to core break his whole team. And my opponent throw the Breaking Swipe, which tells me that, again, he doesn't have a good answer to Metagross. And my opponent continued to stay in. So I was just like, good, Metagross is going places in this match. And I know, obviously, we don't have to shoot anything here. And my opponent's going to switch to a Shadow Tyranitar. And you can just see how Metagross is just meta Pokemon right now in this Master League, because it's just so underused by everybody. Imagine you have Solgaleo and Shadow Tyranitar ahead of Metagross in terms of usage. I think for me, it's just madness. So we're going to farm down this Tyranitar here, and with double debuff Meteor Mash not going to be enough to KO, but I know that I have to throw this right away instead of switch out, because Rayquaza is going to win CMP tie over Metagross, and the energy is going to be useless if I switch out. So here I just have to get to the Breaking Swipe. My opponent allowed me to get to there, and we take that game. So GG to my opponent there, but really enjoy using Metagross in the moment because it just feels so safe. Kyogre on the lead. Obviously, that's where you want to see it. And outcome a Fairy turned out to be a Cernius. And you might think that it is a okay matchup because Metagross obviously hard wall the Cernius. You always have the ability to maintain switch. But what I'm always worried about is the second Fairy at the back, because I've seen a lot of Fairy safe swap, and they are almost always coming with the second Fairy at the back. A lot of the times, obviously, that was Asian. And with the close combat, obviously, it's very annoying to deal with for Rhyperior. And now I have a lot of HP for this Kyogre to farm me down, but I have no choice there. I had to take out the Cernius without spending a shield. So I'm going to throw this Earthquake. It is now not as effective as before the throw an Earthquake because it got nerfed. But what can you do? And here I'm just not going to shoot anything. I know that no matter what it is, I need to rely on my Rhyperior to finish it. And here comes the second Fairy, but it's a Florges. And talking about Spice, my opponent also running serious Spice there. I can't really get to the Dragon Ascent before the first Disarming Voice, so I have to just shield that one, and then hoping that my opponent will take the bait. And that's exactly what happened here. My opponent shielded that Breaking Swipe, and then immediately switched out to the Rhyperior. But the problem is that the Rhyperior doesn't really have a cheap charge move to deal with this. So I deal with the Moonblast, and now I'm aware of the switch clock being massively misaligned. And maybe you could argue that I should have saved this Dragon Breaking Swipe move, because my opponent's just not going to shield this. And now I don't have the energy to deal with this Kyogre have to take a lot of damage on the waterfall. And then obviously we win CMP tie over the Florges, but if my opponent shield, then the game's over. And at this elo range, 2800, 2900, opponents are typically very good at their management, at their play. So opponent obviously going to shield that one, and then another arming ball is going to come through. And GG to my opponent here is very well played. And second fairy is hard to deal with, especially Forges doesn't have a move for debuffing itself, because if it is a station, sometimes the must start really add up after the close combat. But anyway, moving on to the next one, Groudon in the lead. If not a Dragon Tail, is pretty good, and normally they are accompanied by a Dialga, and it's always a very good safe swap for us to deal with, because as soon as you see the Dialga come out, you bring out your Rhyperior, you can always just farm all the way down without shooting twice. You only have to shoot once, because it will always die with an Iron Head stored. Now you have a lot of energy to deal with this Groudon, and you just throw this Breaking Swipe again and again and again and again, just to debuff the Must Shot. It will get to a point where this Groudon is actually unable to take out this Rhyperior with a Fire Punch, and if it wants to take you out, he will have to throw a Precipice Blade, which is a lot of energy. So we're gonna debuff it the third time, and my opponent obviously is knowing that there's no value in the Groudon really, with a Rayquaza that I have in the lead. So just gonna take out my Rhyperior, and then I'm just going to bring up Metagross. There's no need for me to bring in my Rayquaza and turn out to be a Shadow Tyranitar. It's even more Shadow Tyranitar than Metagross. It's just crazy. But obviously, seeing this, we know that there is no play for my opponent here. We're just going to throw the Meteor Mash. And if my opponent shield is okay, because we can still put a punch it down. My opponent just gonna let it go. And then with the Rayquaza, my opponent gonna concede with 2 shields left. So GG to my opponent there. I believe this is the last match. So Rayquaza onto another Rayquaza. I usually like seeing this because I best buddy my Ray, and I usually battle with Ray as my buddy. So I make sure that I win CMP tie every single time over the opposing Ray. And here it really helps. And my opponent obviously shielded that one, and I in turn will shield that one as well, because I know that we don't have a lot of good options at the back to farm down this Rayquaza. And here we feint simultaneously, and usually I just randomly bring a Pokemon. I don't really know what I will bring out each time. This time I selected a Metagross, and he has a Rhyperior, and instantly I remember Home Slice Henry made a team of a Ray on the lead, Cernius and Rhyperior at the back, and so I was thinking, it's not great. So I'm gonna throw this Meteor Mash, and I know it's gonna KO anyway. So my opponent should shield that, and then I will switch to my Rhyperior right away and see what my opponent will do. Luckily, no Rhyperior at the moment is running Surf, because actually there are times where I think maybe Surf will make sense against a Groudon or against the opposing Rhyperior, but most people aren't. So we're gonna throw this Breaking Swipe to bring this Rhyperior down, but because we're debuffed, it doesn't kill. And now the Certainly has come out. And I was actually a little bit worried about this, because I'm not quite sure how much a debuffed Rock Racker would do. And then we throw it, turn out just not very much, because normally it does much more than that. And now my opponent is going to throw the charge move. I was hoping that he's going to throw a close combat to debuff itself. It's exactly what happened, which I don't understand actually. Moonblast should be a better move to throw in that scenario. But I think my opponent realized it and conceded the game as well. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you are having fun playing. I think the Master League is already over at this point, but if you had fun playing, kindly let me know what your team is, and subscribe and like for future content. I'll hope to see you in the next one.